Good afternoon and welcome to my message of the day. I'm Warren, the rector here at St Columba's. On Sunday we celebrated Trinity Sunday, where we reflect on, in traditional language, Father, Son and Holy Spirit. I wanted to talk about that today, perhaps in a way that you might not have heard before. But I want to start with Genesis 1. In Genesis 1 we are told that God created humankind in God's image. So clearly the image of God that we hold is important because it will affect how we see ourselves and vice versa. So imagine if you held an image of God that made God an individual. And sure, that individual, that God, might at some point create, and at that point you would apply the metaphor of creator to God. But you wouldn't apply that metaphor prior to the act of creation. God in that sense would be alone. That would have quite serious implications for how you saw human nature. We would be in essence alone, individuals. Relationship, for instance, would not be part of who we are. Now, in the early church, there was a debate, huge debate, about the nature of Jesus. Was he equal to the one he called Father? So as the Son, to use the traditional language, that Jesus applied to himself, and that has worked its way into the traditional language of the Trinity, Father and Son and Holy Spirit. Is the Son equally God like the Father? Now, there were those, for a whole lot of reasons, who wanted to say no, that he wasn't equal. And when they came up with an image of God, what they said was that God was like an individual, really, like I've just talked about. That there was a time when God was not Father. So at some point, God generated a Son, to use this traditional language of Father and Son, generated the Son, and at that point, one could apply the metaphor of Father to God. So you had Father and Son. But prior to that, God was alone. And you could not apply the metaphor of Father because there was no Son. Meaning that Jesus was not equal to God. But for my purposes today, importantly, that God was alone. So in our essence, we're alone. We're individuals. Relationship might feel like it's important, but ultimately it's not. That would have an implication, for instance, of how we see our final end, when we die. What would salvation look like? It would have to be in some way coordinated with our aloneness. Not relationship, not warmth, not a dance, not a banquet, but stuck in a room by yourself, I suppose, or something. Now, the Orthodox faith disagreed. That Orthodox faith is expressed in the creeds, like the ones that we recite at Sunday services and at baptisms. And what the Orthodox said was that God is eternally Father, implying that an eternal Son. So God wasn't alone, and our nature is not to be alone. That there is in actual fact relationship and personhood. You have Father and Son, the persons of Father and Son, but you have their relationship right eternally, because Father and Son are naturally a relational language. So if you have an eternal Father, there is an eternal Son. The Son is equal to the Father in divinity, which has some other implications, but it has implications for how we see our human nature. Relationship is not an added-on extra to my human nature. It's part of it. Notice in the language of Father and Son, eternal Father and eternal Son, it doesn't in any way annihilate the who of the Father and the Son, the persons. But it has embedded in it relationship as well. That's who we are. I am a human person, not as an individual, but actually as a person who in my personhood is bound with other humans. We're bound together. Relationship is not an added-on extra. We're made in the image of the God who is eternally Father, implying an eternal Son. The more that the Father is the Father, the more that they identify, they truly who they are who they are as Father, the greater the bond with the Son. So who they are is coordinated with the bond between Father and Son. And we talk of that bond as love. So the more the Father loves the Son, the more the Father is the Father. The more the Son is the Son and loves the Father, the greater the bond, and the Son is truly the Son. Relationship and who they are, Father and Son, is coordinated. That's what it means to be a human being. Who I am is coordinated with my bond with you. That's why in Christian marriage, we hold that the two persons, they give of themselves, and instead of being in that self-giving, instead of losing themselves and losing their identity, they actually come to know who they are. In the same way that the Father gives of himself to the Son and truly knows who he is because of that self-giving. Not lost in the relationship, but truly come to be who the Father is. So in marriage, two people become who they are because of their self-giving. This is the nature of the church. We're not just a bunch of individuals coming together believing something that we individually believe, but in my self-giving in the church, in love to others, I find who I am. I don't lose who I am. And in that self-giving, or I should say in being who I am, I give myself. And the bond of love is increased, deepened. We could talk in this way about creation in general, in terms of identity and relationship. Talk about the integrity of creation, but the integrity of creation, the creation is the creation, it's not God, but it's always in relationship with God. To truly be creation implies that the Creator is truly the Creator. We could keep on going, it's starting to get a little bit complicated possibly. But stay with that notion, just have a little think about it, and perhaps replay this video. The contrast between those who wanted to say that God is in some way eternally an individual, and therefore that affects how we see ourselves, and those who said, and this is the Orthodox faith, the Christian faith, who said that God is eternally Father, implying an eternal Son, implying that relationship and personhood are coordinated in God. That's who and what God is, in the same way that in our human nature, in us as human beings, who we are and our bond of love between us are coordinated. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.